Well, the wait is over, and I would say Angry Birds Classic Unused content keeps on going. From unused sprites, to audios, to codes, to scripts, to early ideas, blah 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 blah. Hello everyone, it's your boy Nick the Angry Birds here. And happy holidays everyone. And I'm telling you, this video is a special gift for everyone. Today I'm gonna cover the unused contents of Angry Birds Classic Part 7. Part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are already uploaded, so I'll provide the links of them in the description. Anyways, without talking too much, let's start this video, shall we? Enjoy! The first topic of Unused content series is Mighty Eagle. There are some graphics and buttons that were scrapped in the game. But before that, we will first see the video footage about the tutorial published by the YouTube channel Mobile Living Room. Why I did this? Because the tutorial here has different UI than in the final version. When you fail a level, there will be a skip button with Mighty Eagle on it. That is something that we don't see in the final, as Mighty Eagle is always present at the level on the top of the level heads-up display. Pressing that will give access to it, but you have to purchase it first. After purchasing, you can now use it for unlimited time to demolish the level. But another difference here is that when level clears, you can barely see the destruction gauge is smaller and slanted, whereas in the final it is big and aligned. I said barely because the video quality is very bad, so sorry about that. Okay, now that you have solved this early tutorial UI, now let's see some unused graphics and buttons. Let's start with the baits. Originally, the bait was going to be a mouse found in version 1.4.0 and version 1.4.1 HD, hence the early name of it, Mighty Mouse. But in version 1.4.1, the original one, the bait is changed into a sardine can, but still in an early variant, which is nothing but slanted, still unused. But in the later versions, that is the final version, it didn't have any change, but rather just only a difference here where the sardine can is perfectly aligned. That's it. Now for the eagle himself, which pretty much didn't have any change design wise, just some effects added. Let's see, in version 1.4.0 and version 1.4.1 HD, the eagle himself is totally clear and unobscured. In version 1.4.1, it uses the same sprite in the previous versions but adding some blurred effect, still unused. But in the later versions, that is the final version, it uses the same sprite of version 1.4.1 Eagle himself but having a darker effect. It is like changing in a sequence, I would say that. Now some miscellaneous stuff for Mighty Eagles. We have these early buttons for Mighty Eagle activating. The grayscale ones means it's a disabled one. We also have this sort of badge with Mighty Eagle on it. It is basically for the early version of that level skipped screen before being changed into a destruction gauge. Now let's move on to the other stuff that I'm literally dying to reveal. In version 4.3.5 and later, there are these sprites of the birds cheering, probably for clearing a level. But some of the code in blocks.lua calls these sprites on the variable sprite perp. No idea how this relates, but okay. In version 1.0, where you can see this unused theater block, on the later versions, only a cropped version of this exists in the sprite sheet for some reason. Same goes to this unused platform pillar in version 1.0. On the later versions, only a cropped version of this exists in the sprite sheet. Why did it do this is anyone's guess. Remember that Trick or Treat was going to be the 5th episode in Angry Birds Classic rather than Ham High? Well, indeed it was scrapped, but some objects for this episode exist found in version 1.4.4 before being moved on to another game, Angry Birds Halloween, and then to Angry Birds Seasons. These sprites were then removed in version 1.5.0. Now onto some unused red smiley feathers blocks. We have this jet engine from Bad Piggies. I think that jet engine was also unused in the Bad Piggies as well. Then we have these socks and a stick, which is basically for a sock flag. Those three socks are Flag Sock 1, Flag Sock 2, and Flag Sock 3. Strangely, in blocks.lv file, only the code for sock 1 and the stick exists, but not the other two socks. And these triple balloons from Bad Piggies. Not used in the proper levels or Egg Defender vehicles, but they were used in some unused Egg Defender vehicles, which I'm gonna show later. Way later. Not from Red's Mighty Feathers, but we have these red and yellow poles. Weirdly, these objects appeared in the early version of Danger Above level 7-2, according to the image found in Angry Bird's Nest, which were then removed in the final version. I think these were just nothing but some sort of a decorations. I have no clue. These dark green 10,000 score and white 5,000 score, meant to put in the King Pig minigame from the Golden King Pig. The 5,000 score is for the eggs and the 10,000 score is for the pigs. Since the eggs don't give a score when popped and pigs don't give a score when level clears, these scores get unused. This unused skip button, meant to put for skipping the cutscene. It is found only in version 1.0, if I recall correctly, and it is found in the final cutscene spreadsheet. Well, this went unused, and the only way to skip the cutscenes is to just tap the screen. But the skip button did went used in the latest version, but as a forward button. Speaking of cutscenes, there is a completely unused script file called animation.lua, which is an unused file found from version 1.0 to version 1.6.3. Seeing the intro animation table, it seems to be an early intro cutscene, where it shows that the birds became angry when a pig sneezed on one of the birds. There are also some swearing, so I think that's why they scrapped that thing. Now some unused backgrounds. In version 8.0.3 or before that, I don't know, it consists of an unused script called ThemesNew.lua, which has an unused theme named Theme Beach, suggesting for a beach background. Also, don't get confused for the beach background in Serpenter Part 1. That is a different theme named Theme 11. Seeing this code, it would use the ambient from Birthday Party episode, and the rest are just some random unused background parts for this beach thing. There are no sprites for this background, by the way. The only we know is the sky color and the ground color. The sky color is the top color of the background, and the ground color is the bottom color of the background. By seeing the RGB numbers for sky color, it would give a Dodger blue, and the ground color, it would give a saddle brown, which are not the same colors for the Serpenter Part 1 background. That's why that beach background is not this one. We also have another no sprite background file that is in a DAT file, and it is also in a compo sprite, and it is called Theme FB Compo Sprites. FB stands for Facebook. It is found in the HD versions of version 2.3.0 to version 3.1.2. Opening that, it contains the background sprite names, like FB Moon and FB Midground 1. I don't know why there are three of them here. Seeing these names, it is likely for the night background for the weekly tournament in Angry Birds Friends, which was Angry Birds Facebook before that. There was a prototype discovered in Angry Birds Classic, which is known as the version 2.2.0 prototype. It's an early HD build dated on May 28, 2012, and it was just to test the King Pig activity mode on iPad, or should I say that Golden King Pig thing. This is an IPA file, by the way, and there is no Android nor PC port. So, sorry, this build has only one file called Metal Elements 1, which has several early assets for the Golden King Pig mode, or that activity thingy, and all the assets are stored in this one file, The final release has a lot of separate files for it. Here is this early sprite sheet. Let's see what are the difference here from the early to the final. The first comparison we're gonna do is the small pig, which is the pig counterpart of the blues. The difference between the early and the final is that the early version has the orange eye bags, just like the blues has. But the final version doesn't have them, for some reason. Also, the early version has its own unique herd sprite, but in the final it is not really a herd sprite, but rather it is some sort of a shocked expression. Why Rovio did that is also anyone's guess. Now the rocket pig, which is the pig counterpart of Chuck. The difference between the early and the final is that in the early version, it has only the white rockets, but in the final version they added some red stripes with some fins, just to add some detail. Also, another early variant of the rocket pig can be found at the back of the King Pig activity box, where it's just using an early design of that prototype rocket pig I mentioned earlier, but the notable difference here is that he has an antenna that is absent from the prototype rocket pig I mentioned. Did you also notice this timer from Bird Frenzy and Total Destruction minigame? Well, there exists this early version of the timer itself, where the difference being that the early version has wood blocks rather than this translucent black square in the final version. What's more interesting is that, did you also notice this time is also separated into 4 segments? Well, this early version of the timer having the wood blocks also represents these 4 segments of the time. This is for minutes, this is for colon, this is for seconds, and this is for milliseconds. In the final version, they're just all together. This early version is very unique, I would say. Even though the finalized version of the timer is removed in the latest version for some awkward reason, or maybe it's just due to code bug, I don't know. Now for the minigame logos. For Bird Frenzy, Total Destruction, and Material Mix-Up, the early versions are much less detailed than in the final version. But for King Pig, it is actually not called King Pig back then. Its original and early name is Pig Panic. Seeing the difference, they are vastly different. Even the finalized logo sprite name is also Logo Pig Panic. Funny. But there is another minigame that is completely scrapped in the final version, and that's called Pigs Do Fly. Till to this day, no one actually knows what this minigame is. But most people, including me, are assuming that this is an even earlier name of King Pig before being named as Pig Panic. Or maybe this is just another minigame that we don't know how it works. There is also this King Pig laughing sprite, just for as a logo, appearing in the, at the starting of the minigame or when you clear or fail a level. But this file only contains one King Pig logo sprite, and that is this laughing one. In the final it has 4, 2 laughing and 2 crying. And the early King Pig himself is different than in the final, giving you some dead stare in the early version. Also, for some reason, the girl pig, which is the pig counterpart of Stella, doesn't appear in this prototype spreadsheet for some reason. Maybe she wasn't planned back then. And now, the continuation of F2P free-to-play and the anger features. There's a ton and ton of sprites to reveal and some codes. So that's why I will not show all these sprites nor the codes. I'll just summarize how it works. If you want to see all the sprites and codes for it by yourself, you can download the Angry Birds Classic version 5.2.0, the iPhone version, the iOS version. That's the best version containing all the anger assets and the F2P assets. You can find them in the Angry Birds Plus Bad Piggies collection archive website by searching any web browser. Okay, let's move on. So the way of filling the anger meter is to collect the stars or refilling them by watching the video. There's also this F2B Terror sprite. I thought it doesn't exist, but it actually does. Also, remember that I said these sprites are for the anger abilities? Well, they're actually not. They're just activated sprites for their anger abilities. Their actual anger abilities are as follows. Red will now be set on fire and it will explode, turning all the blocks into fire blocks. And they just turn into ash. The blue strikes downwards, giving you some sort of like a trail, kind of like a firework trail. Chunk goes in a tremendous speed, breaking the sound barrier and destroys objects or pigs, just like Karen Jara's ability in Angry Birds Star Wars 2. Matilda drops a rainbow egg, which creates a huge explosion and also produces other small eggs for mini explosions. Here are some footages of these anger abilities. And Terrence also has the anger ability. He just shakes the camera and changes the Y position of the objects. There is no footage of it. Bomb has no anger ability so far. Also, there was supposed to be some sort of a level tier thing. I have no idea how it works. And also this anger pool thingy, that I think it will give you some sort of bonus anger before entering the level. I don't know. Somewhat functions like that. Also, there's another sprite sheet for the anger asset known as the menu upgrades inventory, where something interesting here is that there is this sprite of Wingman, both small and big, but the files don't actually name him as Wingman. They named him as inventory upgrade bonus bird and inventory upgrade bonus bird big. No idea how it works, but I think this Wingman thing is just a placeholder, or somewhat like that, because this doesn't make sense actually. Now on some minigames. I only showed the bubbles and balloons and pig feeder video footages in my part 6 video, but I haven't showed the level transition footage that I also mentioned. Here is the footage. And here's the image of the Demolisher minigame image that I already mentioned in the part 6 video about how it works. Also, it is now revealed how the chuck speed minigame functions, because in the part 6 video I said that it is not tested. It is nothing but a variant of a chuck's ability which makes him move in a straight line, leaving a particle trail behind. That's all. And we have the two minigames that I forgot to mention. One is Wind. It is probably just a harder version of Pig Feeder. Stellar Rescue, in which you have to rescue the birds by tapping them while also avoiding the pigs, as tapping the pigs will make you lose a life. The lives are represented as one of the shockwave bomb sprites, somewhat like a placeholder. It is somewhat unfinished, so that's why it will crash when tapping any bird or pig. Here is the footage. Also, these minigame codes that I found are in a folder known as prototyping. Just in case that you know. We also have another type of minigame. I don't know if it's a minigame or not. It's called TNT Bird. It's basically a bird in a TNT. I have no idea. We also have the Wheel of Fortune, which is not a minigame but somewhat a daily spinning wheel. That is also unused, so I don't know how it will look like. Now we have some unused levels to show. Originally, Short Fuse level 3 was going to have 2 shockwave bombs, which are replaced by 3 chucks and 1 Terrans. We also have this level where you can see 2 blues hanging, which is unsettling, to be honest. Next is this level found in the Angry Birds Roots trailer, probably in the early version of level 1 of Danger Above, due to it looking simple. The next level is this Dice Pyramid level in Post Tags on the in-game trailer, where you see 3 Matildas and also the platform is different. In the final it has 2 Matildas and a different platform. Next is this church level for Danger Above that didn't appear in any levels for part 2 of Danger Above. If you want to see all more unused levels in Angry Birds Classic, Angry Birds Classic Unused Levels is for you. Made by Pig Doggo. Link is in the description. Next, here are some unused Egg Defender vehicles from Rest Mighty Feathers. Next, we also have the King of the Hill and Train minigame leftover code, which are actually the unused minigames from Angry Birds Rio, and they're found in version 1.6.3 game logic file. Why are they here is unknown. Now on to some audio sounds. The unused audio sounds actually. We have some good shot sounds. Here are all of them. These are likely meant to vote when the bird does a lot of damage to the structures, although they became used in Rovio Classic Angry Birds, and some merchandise like the plushies, etc. Still, I'll consider them as unused in the Angry Birds Classic original version. In the in-game trailer of Angry Birds Classic, if you notice clearly, you can hear another earlier variant of the slingshot launch sound. Take a look at it. It pretty much sounds less violent. If you want to see more unused sounds, I made a playlist for it. Hop on it to hear the other unused sounds. On the later versions of the Angry Birds Classic, there are some sort of these another versions of the shockwave bombs exploding phases. They look pretty different compared to what we see in the final. On the unused version, you can see that they are much more angry compared to the final version, which uses the same exploding phase sprite for the normal bomb. As well as the skull can be seen inside the bomb's body instead of showing as a separate thing. And also some, weird blue effect coming out of him. That is some strange thing. I made a video of the whole description of the Angry Birds Hatchery island thingy, so link will be in the description for it. Remember that in the Hatchery where you can create your own bird and it'll be like randomized? Well, I looked on that files for those randomized birds thingy, and I discovered this early version of Matilda's deflated herd sprite. It's faceless because the eyes and beak are randomized. Here's my attempt for combining it. So the difference between the early and the final here is nothing but the shape of the body itself, having less curves in the early version compared to the final. That's it. There is no other difference. On one of the Facebook albums from February 19, 2010, there are some screenshots of a build featuring some early versions of Post-X and Mighty Hoax levels. These are pretty much for the early build of 1.0, and they're referred to as the 1.0_RC3. RC3 is referred to as Release Candidate 3. Here you can see that, for example, the early version of the King Pig Palace level, that is the final level for Post-X, where you can see there are supposed to be much more pillars here, as well as the castle thingies are much bigger than compared to the final version, which are simplified. And another example here is this 2-21 level of Post-X, where you can see the side parts are much more longer than compared to the final version, which are simplified. From what I can say, originally the levels were going to be much more harder than it is now. We also have some of the Mighty Hoax levels that uses the Post-X Part 1 background, suggesting that they were somewhat in a progress. We also have this Danger Above 7-3 level, which is just using the Post-X Part 1 background, nothing else. And it is found in the Rovio Museum website, the website that I found the concept art for the Angry Birds. The last part of this video is the early ideas of the game itself. An interview with Mikkel and Nicholas Head was issued in April 2011 on a Wired magazine, and it shows some original gameplay concepts, like how it works. Originally, the bird has the same color matching with the block. If the bird tapped the block, the bird with the same color would fly up and destroy it. That is the thing I said in part 6 video, but I said it in detail. This is just like this screenshot shown by Yako Isado. At that time, the bird's ability was not even a thing. There were some collectible eggs that act as power-ups. The player would upgrade the bird to become stronger, somewhat like the evolving mechanic. And the slingshot idea wasn't even planned. The idea was that to shoot a bird, you have to swipe the finger in the direction to the structures. Take an example of this power-up University Birdquake level, where there is no slingshot. You swipe the bird in any direction and the bird will shoot on that direction. A big thanks to Angry Birds Modding Hub Discord server, Rovio Gaming Discord server, the Cutting Room Floor, and Angry Birds Wiki for making this possible, because they provided a lot of unused content stuff. So big huge thanks to them. And that'll wrap up in today's video. Maybe part 8 will be uploaded if I'm missing some parts. Hopefully someday. Until then, if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, press the bell for more videos. Happy holidays everyone, and I hope you had a fantastic Christmas day. Adios!